Hello everybody and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we are back for the conclusion of the CoolerMaster Custom Server Twins series that we've been doing over the last couple videos. And if you remember, over the course of those videos, we found two systems from E-Waste, seemingly identical custom servers. The only difference was that we had one server with 4 gigabytes of extra memory in it. So we had one with 4 gigabytes and one with 8 gigabytes. Outside of that, everything looked the same. There was some minor damage to one of the boards, but and some other damage to one of the cases. But we were able to take, in the last video, both systems, clean up what we could, get it all together, pulled the best parts from both systems, and create this beautiful machine in front of us. And at the end of that video, I also moved forward and took advantage of the Intel onboard RAID technology that was on this system. And so we had a terabyte drive and a 500 gigabyte drive, and I rated them RAID 1. I had said there during the video, I tried everything I could to find either two 500 gigs or two 1 terabytes, and I was going to be happy with that, just for the sake of what we were doing. But then the scope has kind of changed. That hasn't been sitting well with me, the different size drives, because you do lose 500 gigabytes as a result of rating at 1. And so in today's video, I would like to do something a little different. I'd like to take this apart, get rid of that RAID, and install a brand new setup. Because I'd like to, based on a bunch of comments in the video, convert it from what it is now, whatever it was going to be, just a simple installation of a server. But I'm going to install Windows Server 2008 R2 on the system, install the file services, and also I want to configure the RAID as a RAID 10 and get a little more storage here and use it as a file server. So there's lots to do, so let's get right to it. Okay, and we're back, and I just want to give a closer look at this screen before we start to do any sort of different configuration. So as I was mentioning earlier, we have our DVD drive, our generic DVD drive that's here, and we have our 1 terabyte and our 500 gigabyte drives that were here, both Seagate drives. And I set them up as a RAID 1 as I indicated. So it's showing as online because it's doing what it needs to do hardware-wise to mirror the drives. And that's what RAID 1 is. And I'll snap a little picture of the different configurations so you can hit pause on your screen and you can see the different type of RAID types that are described. And then so, unfortunately, as the way I set it up, it's going to default to the smaller drive space. And that's what's done here. So if you see, I have the larger, obviously you can't make the smaller one bigger, but you can make the bigger one smaller. So that's what's happened here. And so again, like I had mentioned, I wasn't happy with that. I wasn't happy with, for the sake of what we were trying to do, it's fine, but I'm wasting space and I could use these drives in other applications, other builds on the channel. So I was sitting back thinking about it, reading all the comments, responding to a bunch of comments. And originally I was going to install Server 2016, but then I'm trying to keep something close to this when this would have come out. And so I was thinking about, back and forth in my mind. I went, you know what? Server 2008 R2 is probably fair to install on the system and also to set it up as a file server. I'm going to set it up in a RAID 10 area. I mean, I've, again, debated this a lot. Do RAID 5, you get more space, but less redundancy. Do I want to do a full mirror? I mean, the space is kind of the same. RAID 10 allows you to do mirror and stripe. And then that way you have your ability to go right across. You have full redundancy that way. And so I've been toying with this so much, and I don't know why I've been struggling with this. Maybe because I'm going to be using them. In order to do a RAID 10, we need at least a minimum of 4 drives. So we have two 1 terabyte drives here from Seagate as well. And we also have an additional 2 1 terabyte Seagate drives here as well. So they're all 7200 RPM drives, so performance will be equal across the board. And they're all SATA 6 gigabyte per second transfer rates, data transfer rates. So they're all within that same family and relatively close in date codes. But the nice thing is they're all different drives. And so, one fails, you throw another one in the array and it rebuilds. That's what I'm going to do today. And that's why I feel like, a RAID 10 is probably best. Now, I have 4 drives. So I'm going to use the terabyte one in here. And I'm going to make that the operating system drive. And then I will make the RAID 10. So that will be by itself. I'm not going to RAID it. It'll just be a single point of failure, of course. It's just the operating system. And I mean, I can rebuild that in, half hour, 45 minutes, not a big deal. But it's the data that I'm concerned about. And so I'm just going to keep that, keep the RAID 10 for that purpose. So I'm going to go ahead and reconfigure that in a moment. This board has 6 SATA ports on it. So I'll be able to put the 4 drives plus the OS drive. That gives me theoretical 3 terabyte if I want to use the OS drive for any sort of data transfer, even temporary holding while I move data back and forth between the RAID area, as well as I do have the DVD on the SATA as well, and I don't have any adapters to split anything out more than that. So I'm going to be utilizing all 6 of the SATA ports in this build. So I'm not going to go through the pain of showing everybody, the process of doing that. I am going to take the system apart again, but I'm going to take those out, just leave one of them in for the main primary drive. And then I'm going to install those 4 drives here and get them all installed, get them set up as a RAID 10. So the next time you see this screen, it should show the RAID 10, should show how many drives we have, should show the total drive space and online. So I'm going to get right to it now. Checking in for a moment, just to let everyone know what's been done. So we now have our primary boot drive is going to be the 1 terabyte that's up here, and then we have our 4 drives. So just to address a couple comments that have been made on the last video is one, the power, the 8-pin power coming from the power supply did have kind of spanned across the board here, kind of held back with some cable management. And I had made the comment that I would have liked it to be a little longer so I could actually go up through the cable management and then over across the top of the board. But if you see it now up in the corner here, it's because one of my viewers, and I apologize, I don't remember who you are at the moment, they suggested that I actually go in behind because there's a hole here and a hole up at the very top. And I was able to get the wire running right behind the board, freeing up the complete access to the front of the board. So thank you so much for that suggestion. That's amazing. It works very well, as you can see in this setup. The other comment that was made as well was focused on the drive area. Having this many drives and a concern around cooling in this area to do, we should go to solid state because of the amount of heat and what have you. Well, it's a CoolerMaster case. That's what I made the comment on. And we have a fan literally right here on the front that's blowing this way, that's connected. We have the 120 millimeter fan that's in the back there. We have the regular CPU fan, of course. We have the PSU fan as well that's doing what it's doing. But also on the panel, on the side panel that goes right here, we also have another 120 mil fan. So I'm not worried. And I will make a comment, though, that these fans are super quiet. It's crazy to see how quiet they are. Now, as I mentioned, I have the drives installed. Took a little bit of adapters because the power supply didn't come with all SATA ability to connect that many connections, including for the DVD drive. So I was able to get a couple of adapters that allowed me to connect it all together. But I mean, we have enough SATA cables, and I stole the SATA cables from the other server board as well. So we're using light cables for what we need to do. Okay, time to get that RAID set up. And we're back with the proper RAID setup. And this is what I was looking to do. So we have our DVD drive up top, and we have our primary boot drive, which is going to be our OS drive. That's the 1 terabyte that left in there. That was part of the old RAID. I deselected that RAID, told it to clear the configuration and make it a standalone. And then I took these 4 drives that were here, and that's the 4 models that we have here. We were able to take those drives and put them into a RAID 10 configuration, totaling 2 terabytes, and now it's online. So the next step we're going to do is get the operating system installed. And this operating system, as I mentioned earlier, is Windows Server 2008 R2 with Service Pack 1 pre-installed. So we're going to pop that disk in there, and I just had to pause on this screen, but I'm going to hit enter and let it continue the install of the beautiful operating system. So I wasn't able to get it to boot, and so I restarted the computer, told it to boot from the DVD-ROM drive, and during the and this is footage I scrapped, but during the setup, I wasn't able to see that 1 terabyte drive. I was able to see the RAID 10 with the 4 drives totaling 2 terabyte, but I wasn't able to see that singular 1 terabyte drive that I want to use for the OS drive. So I had to go back in, clear the configuration, RAID configuration, and set itself up as a virtual disk itself. So I was able to get that configured no problem. And then once I did that and saved that, then the other 4 I was able to get into the RAID 10 setup as well. So that's the difference you see here now, is that, I mean, we always saw this information up top because it does an inventory of what you have on the system, but then it went ahead and I had to create the extra virtual disk array number, and I had to make it 0001 for it to properly do that. And then I had to tell it that array 00 was actually a bootable drive. So I was able to configure all that as well. Now let's get Windows installed. Windows is loading a file for Windows Server 2008 R2. Starting Windows. And the interface is very similar to Windows 7. Obviously, both were based on the same kind of interface for installation. So that's pretty standard there. Welcome to Windows Server 2008 R2 setup. So we want to do English, and that's all fine. We'll hit next. We'll click on Install Now. And this is where we should see that primary drive. We should see both, but I want to install it on the singular 1 terabyte drive. I'm going to be installing Windows Server 2008 R2 Enterprise, the full installation. We already have it here. We don't need Enterprise, but it does give you a few features that Standard doesn't have. So I'd like to potentially take advantage of those someday. So we're going to choose that. And there's our accept the license terms. We'll hit next. We're going to do a custom advanced install. So we're installing a new copy of Windows. This option does not keep your file settings and programs. This option to make changes to disks and partitions is available when you start your computer using the installation disk. So we're doing that. It gives you the option to upgrade. There's nothing there. So we're just going to click on custom. So it must have detected when I was doing my previous install. I'm going to delete some of these partitions and clean up this area a bit. And we'll delete this one. Yes, we are. There we are. Okay, this is what we want. So we have the unallocated space. This is what it should have. So what it was detecting was the previous installation on that drive when we had our original RAID set up. So I just had to go in here and clean that up. So now we have just 0 unallocated space of 1 terabyte, which is what we're looking for. And then we have disk 1 unallocated space, which is 2 terabyte, when in fact that's actually 4 drives in a RAID 10 configuration for data integrity. We're going to hit next. We want to install it on the disk 0. And now it's going to start installing Windows for us. Okay, we're continuing on with our installation here. It says that it's copied all the Windows files, that expanded the files, installed the features, the updates, and now it's completing the installation. Windows needs to restart. I'm impatient. Let's just click on Restart Now, and it should go forward. Things are going pretty well here. Not getting any sort of errors. I was able to check the drive integrity within the embedded RAID hardware. Okay, Windows is configuring the installation. Continuing on. Setup is updating registry settings. Nothing too fancy so far in terms of the GUI. Just, again, just getting it to a point. Setup is starting services. And now it's completing the installation. You know, where this system was already used in a server environment in the past, it has a server board. I'm definitely going to take advantage of having that hardware and having that set up. And also, I read some other comments that we were surprised this didn't have a Xeon processor in it, for example, or you know, ECC memory and things like that. Now, this board supports both. It supports the Xeon processor and different types of memory, so it's good that it supports it. So there's nothing there that's stopping that, which is good. But definitely, again, loving the comments below, because we all learn from this as we go, and You know, for example, that wire that I ran in behind the board, I wouldn't have done without the suggestion of somebody else on the channel in the comments. So thank you again. Setup is preparing your computer for first use. Okay, so the user's password must be changed before logging on for the first time. Okay, no problem. And we'll set a password to this computer. Password has been changed. Great. Preparing your desktop. So obviously there's drivers missing here. We'll do a little tour of that just to see what is missing for drivers. And then we have our Windows desktop. No sound, because there's no sound card installed in this because it is a server board. Now, it does have expansion possibilities. We do have the PCI slots there. We do have the PCIe that we could use for a video card. But again, because we're using this as a server type setup, I'm not going to do anything with that right now. I'm going to minimize this right now. So we are showing, I want to go through the screen separately in a moment. I just want to go into the hardware real quickly here. So again, we have control panel here. We'll go to my computer, under properties. So it's not detecting that there's any issues with any drivers not being installed. Let's take a look here. So under computer, you just have a regular 64-bit computer. We have our disk drive. So these are the arrays that we have set up using the onboard embedded RAID. It's detecting it as Intel Mega SR SCSI disk device. Display adapters, there's our problem right there. It's just detecting it as a standard VGA graphics adapter. So we'll have to get that updated. So our DVD CD-ROM drives, we have our DVD-ROM drive in there, which we know we have. Floppy drive controller. So it is nice because this board does come with a floppy drive controller on board. The header's on board. So we could theoretically put a floppy drive in this computer if needed, or, you know, if we really wanted to, we could have, you know, something like a GoTech or something. But, you know, for what we're doing right now, I don't see the need so far to do that. But it's nice that it has that functionality. We have our USB input devices, keyboard, same idea, same stuff, pretty standard run of the mill. Our mouse is installed, monitor, generic monitor, network adapters. So it did detect both network adapters. So the Intel Pro 1000 MT network connection, that's built on board. And then the Realtek one, I believe, is the TP-Link that's here. Again, gigabyte card. Yeah, the PCI, there it is there. Okay, so it is a PCI card. So, I mean, what I would like to do as well is potentially take advantage of the dual network and bridge the connections together. Again, let me know down in the comments what you would do for that specifically for speed, because if I'm going to be using this in any sort of NAS type environment for file server storage, I'm just going to end up creating a folder and creating folders on this system and dropping files into them based on all the videos and the footage and all the things that I do. Speed would be awesome. So, you know, can I take advantage of that speed? So let me know in the comments if I should bridge them or what I should do in terms of the networking. Ports, more ports, all ports. Processors. So there's our Core 2 Quad CPU. Someone else made a comment that didn't know that Quad existed. I don't remember it being very popular, to be honest with you. I know it was in a few setups that I had witnessed, but nothing, nothing stood out. Mostly it was just the Core 2 Duo CPUs. But again, it serves the purpose for a server environment, gives us a little more horsepower. Storage controllers, we have our embedded server RAID technology too, and that's what we keep on referring to and referencing or seeing as we boot up the system, and just our typical system devices. I do have the Intel board disk for this computer, so I'll pop that in, and on the disk, on the front of the disk, it does state that it has video drivers as part of the package. You know, you have the ability to run it via HTML as a website. Yes, we're fine. Go ahead. And welcome, will ask me later. Yes, we'll continue. I can add it as a saved list and all that stuff. So anyway, here it is. Okay. Because just typical server security that we have on here. But anyway, okay. So drivers and utilities. So we have the Microsoft Windows drivers. And then, so it does show that it supports Server 2008 64 edition right out of the box. So another reason why I went with this is the research I did was saying that this board did support that, and so that's great. So it has network card drivers, which is detected already, chipsets detected, video drivers. Here it is right here. It's a server engines, G200E video drivers. So it's not terrible, but we'll click on that. And then, so here it is right here. Click on that, and it's supposed to navigate me to another window, and it's not doing that. So we'll have to do it the old fashioned way. We'll just go browse the CD here. There it is there, or I should say DVD. Windows is not seeing the storage drive. We'll figure that out in a moment. Let's get, because we know it's installed correctly. We know how we have the RAID installed. We know when we install Windows, it did see that space. It must be a driver as to why it's not seeing that. So, okay, let's go into open this up, drivers, and we're going to choose video. And I'm going R4 because it looks to be the newer date. We'll go into here and we'll do Windows 64-bit 2008, which is what we want. And we'll go to Files and Setup. So that should load what we need for the video drivers. Here we go. So Matrox display driver installation. We have that. Matrox graphics. Great. We'll hit Next. And we'll hit Next again because it detected it. And we'll hit Next again. Let it install. There we go. Pretty quickly. And then wants to restart the computer. Okay, we're just booting back into Windows now. And it just occurred to me that the RAID 10 configuration that I would have set up would not have been formatted. So it's very possible that Windows is just not seeing it because of that. But yeah, we'll just go into Disk Manager and see if we can get that set up. So but we are seeing the Windows desktop now in a much different resolution, which is good. Awesome. I am going to change the screen resolution just a little bit here just because I want to make sure that everybody can see the information on the screen. Here we go. We're going to keep the changes. 800 by 600 for now, just because I want everyone to be able to see what I'm doing. Yeah, so we're just going to go into computer management. Do we have disk management here? Yeah, here it is, disk management. And so under disk management, you must initialize disk before local manager can access it, disk 1. So there's the disk 1 of unallocated. So this is the one that I had indicated that we had an issue with. So if we now go into the computer, yeah, so it's not showing. So let's go in here and we'll do a new volume. Yes. We'll make it the full space. Yes. Assign it D drive, which is fine. We'll next. And we're going to format it NTFS default. We'll call this the data drive. And then we'll do a quick format, see if it allows us to do that. So it's pretty straightforward to do this. All we're doing is like I had mentioned earlier, I didn't think about it till after I restarted it. I remembered, I was like, well, wait a minute. You didn't initialize the drive. You didn't do anything with the drive. You literally, it's just a raw drive that's in the system, and Windows, of course, wouldn't see it. We're just so used to Windows actually configuring that for us during install. But it did that for this drive, the 1 terabyte. But this is a whole new setup because we're using this as an OS drive, and this is our RAID setup for the 2 terabyte. So we went in there, right-clicked on it, and told it to go to a new volume. Okay, we'll click on Finish, and it should set it up now. Now it's formatting. And there we go. Healthy primary partition, which is awesome. And this is our boot partition, and which is great. Okay, now we're going to close that for now, and then see if Windows detected. There we go. So there we go. It just shows right up. So we have our D drive, which is great, and then we have our C drive, which is also awesome, and that's our Windows performance. Now remember, anything happens to this over here, any of our data, a disk goes bad, we can swap it in. RAID will automatically rebuild it for us, and we'll be good to go. That's the nice thing about RAID 10. You can even lose, I think, 2 drives, and it can still be rebuilt, depending on what drives, of course. To recap, we have Windows Server 2008 installed now, our R2 version, with Service Pack 1. We have Provide Computer Information. So here we have Activate Windows. I will do that at another time. Set the time zone. So we're going to change the time zone to Atlantic time. That's where I am. That's proper now. And configure networking. So it shows the 2 there. Now, this is where I've said to everyone, if you guys can let me know, do I want to bridge the connections? Do I want to do something differently with this once I get the 2 Ethernet cables connected? Or do I just go with 1 gigabit connection? And is that going to be enough? Now, keep in mind, there's gigabytes of information being passed through the network. So whatever you guys can do to give me some suggestions on that, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, provide computer name and domain. So, I can change the computer name to be something different. Workgroup's going to be workgroup. That's what it is on the server. Let's go to file server is what I'll call it. Something simple, and it's going to remain on the workgroup. We don't have a domain here. We'll have to restart the computer, and that's fine. We'll restart later. We're not going to do that right now because, yeah, we're just not. Okay, update the server. Enable automatic updating and feedback. I'm not sure if Windows update works on this. I'm going to enable it for now just to see, because I am going to go online. I know I said I wasn't going to, but I do want to go online after I get the firewall on and all that stuff, just because I want to get the updates installed. Okay, add roles, add features, enable remote desktop. So we'll go and add roles. It needs to restart first for this. Okay, we'll hit restart. Okay, Windows, we'll do what you want. We'll hit next on that, or yes. Okay, we're back at the login prompt. We're going to hit Control-Delete, enter the password, and remember that the video resolution is the way it is because that's what we want it to be, so everybody can see the screen. So initial tasks, these are things just it wants to do. I'm going to leave this on every time until I go to activate Windows. So we're going to go back into add roles, and this time it's going to let me do it because we're not we're in a better place now. Okay, click on next. And so what we're going to do for this specific server, for what I want to do with this, I'm just trying to get this lighting good for you, everybody here, is we're going to install the file services, network policy access services, print and document services, remote desktop services. So we're installing file services to allow us to do what we need to do in terms of the file server. Network policy and access services in case, just for access to the system. Print and document services, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but again, just to have. And then remote desktop services. So I can access this system just like terminal services. So I can have a user logging into this, for example. Okay, we'll click on next. And introduction to remote desktop services. Remote desktop services, formerly known as terminal services, provides technology that enable users to access Windows-based programs that are installed on an RD session host server. Access the full Windows desktop of an RD session host server or access a virtual machine. With remote desktop services, users can access an RD session to remote desktop session host server or virtual machine from your corporate network. That's fine. To allow remote connections for administrative purposes only, you do not have to install remote desktop session host. I get that. Because as an administrator, I can log in as a user, but I wanted to do this on the channel just to show everybody. So we'll click on next. So before I hit next, you can click on this. It gives you additional information about what remote desktop services is. And next. And so select the role services to install for remote desktop services, the role services. So it's recommended that you install remote desktop session host before you install any applications that you want to make available to users. That makes total sense. If I should get this installed first before installing any applications so that remote users can access it and see it. So next, do we want to require network level authentication or do not require? We don't require the authentication. So computers that are running any version of remote desktop connection client can connect to this server, which we want. So these are the CALs. I mean, I believe it comes with one CAL plus the administrator. We're going to do per user CALs is what I want to install as they log in versus per device. That way we can have one user with multiple devices depending on what they're utilizing to access. And next. Okay, so we have administrators here. That's going to be just fine for what we want. But next, you can configure the RD session host server so that users connecting to a remote desktop session can use functionality similar to that provided by Windows 7. So we want audio and video feedback, audio recording, redirection, desktop composition, provides user interface with Windows Aero. That's fine. We'll give all the nice little features here. And discovery scope for remote desktop license servers used by RD session host servers to automatically discover the license server. This does not apply to RD session host servers running Windows Server 2008 R2 and applies only those running Server 2008, 2003, or 2000. No, we'll keep it like this because I don't think I'll be utilizing any of their servers to access this. Microsoft recommends that you do not configure a discovery scope for a licensed server. Instead, you should use the remote desktop session host configuration tool. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. We'll leave it the way it is. Okay, introduction to network policy and access services. Network policy and access services allows you to provide local and remote network access and define the enforced policies for network access authentication, authorization, and client health using Network Policy Server NPS, routing and remote access service, health registration authority, and host credential authority or authorization protocol. Okay, that's fine. Hit next. And this is the network policy server. Actually, I'm wondering now if I even needed this, to be honest. Routing and remote access servers. Oh, cancel. That's fine. And then those are fine. Okay, introduction to print and document services. Yes, so we're going to be a print server. That's all I want, just to be a print server so I can use it for different things. Role services, file server. I'm just trying to think what else do we need for file services. File server, resource manager. Sure. Sorry guys, so used to doing this by myself. So file server resource manager, so enables you to generate storage reports, configuration quotas, and define file screening policies. So if I want to grow the system or have it do anything else, it allows me to limit or generate reports via email and things like that. That's what that's for. You can monitor the amount of space used on each volume on this computer and generate storage reports when a volume reaches a specific usage threshold. This will just warn me as it gets closer. It'll send me a note saying, hey, watch out. For now, we're just going to have it stored on the C drive, but I will activate the email because the whole purpose of this is, hey, you're reaching 85%. This tower is going to be sitting somewhere in one of my areas that are going to be plugged in via network, and it won't have a computer monitor connected to it. It's just going to be sitting there. As I'm dropping files on there, I will rely on that for sure. Okay, next. Server must be restarted after the installation completes, of course, because we're doing a heck of a lot of stuff in a moment. But remote desktop session host, RD licensing. So everything that we just told it to do, it's going to install. So hit install. Now, one of the things I'll say before, the comments start rolling in on the video is, everybody uses their servers for different ways. Everybody uses servers for different configurations, has different experience for doing these server types of setup. I'm doing this for what I want to do, but this is by no means a documentary or instructions or whatever to be able to build up your server. There's tutorials out there. There's a pile of other YouTubers out there that have instructions on how to do all this. Again, saw other options in there. I'm thinking, it'd be cool to have a print server on this and all that. It just saves me the hassle later. Personal preference for this guy. You do you, whatever you want to do on a server. So again, before all the comments come in to say, you shouldn't install that, you didn't need that, or you should do this, or you should have done this differently. Everybody's different. Everybody has different use cases. So, I'm no different than that. So that's what I'm doing now. So we have all that done now. So we have our data drive. So I'm just going to do a folder here, and I'm going to call it the retro recall. And that way we have that, we're going to have that set up for sharing. So I'm going to call it remote desktop users. I'm going to share it with desktop users. And basically that'll allow me to access that folder outside of using this. So there's a file server. So when it's on my network, essentially that's the network path share. So / file server, which is the computer name / the retro recall, will allow me to access that folder and drop files into that. Now, obviously within that, I'm going to create other folders, but the primary folder will be shared. So we have ended the saga of the CoolerMaster Twins. We have taken the system itself and created an actual server environment installed on this computer. And, I think it's absolutely great that we have that installed. I'm just putting a different type of theme on here just because, make it look nicer and prettier and all that. There we go. We have a Windows Server 2008 R2 looking like the Windows 7 theme. There we go. Made it all nice and personalized. And here we are at the end of our series. We have a system set up from an E-Waste servers that were used in that environment. The best of both worlds came together, created one system from two, and we have that beautiful looking CoolerMaster case. And we were able to take that today and put in 4 drives in the RAID 10 configuration. Just above it, we were able to have the main OS drive. So we have that as well. And then we also have the networking sharing services installed, file services installed, RDS service installed. We can log into this server remotely from anywhere on my network. Arguably, if I open up the firewall, I could do it outside, but that's a whole other thing. It's out of scope for what I'm trying to do with this. I'm just trying to make this system with a Server 2008 R2 installed basically a glorified NAS, and that's what I'm going to be using it for. We have 2 terabytes free for us right now. We have our retro recall link shared to have all this set up properly on this system. Again, this was something that was going to be thrown away and tossed, and I've just given it new life. It has 8 gigs of RAM, as a quad-core 2.66 gigahertz processor. It'll work just fine. Please comment below. Let me know what I should do with those NICs. Should I bridge them? Should I do something differently? On that note, that's it for the series. We have a fully working system. Love the look of it. Love what it's going to be able to do. If you like today's video, please give it a thumbs up. Really helps out. Again, subscribe to the channel. I notice a lot of viewers that are watching these videos aren't subscribing to the channel. So if you do, it really helps me out, helps the YouTube algorithm get out there and share and spread out all the different videos on this channel. We're, again, trying to grow the channel, trying to experience it with everybody. So really appreciate it. And again, comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what I should have done differently. Again, we're all learning here, and I love all the comments. I try to respond to absolutely every comment down below that I can. All that said, I'm always making new content. Hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.